Hello and welcome to Conservative Arkansas Media. Thank you so much for being with us. My name is Paul Harrell. We've got a great show for you lined up as we cover what's going on in Little Rock at the Arkansas General Assembly. It is in full swing. We've seen a lot of great bills being passed to protect our kids. We've seen the Arkansas Learns Act be hotly debated, passed out of committees, passed out of both chambers, signed into law by Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We've also seen the left lie about what the bill does, and that's a big legislative agenda that really now that box has been checked. And so what else is left? Well, prison reform, judicial reform. You heard it in Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders' speech, saying that it's nothing compassionate about releasing unreformed, unrepentant criminals back onto our streets. But I wanted to start today by giving you some inside baseball, some legislative sleight of hand. For a very long time, Republicans have contended that affirmative action policies in the state of Arkansas, across the country, are out of line and, as a matter of fact, discriminatory. Actually, the very discrimination that affirmative action laws seek to end, they actually have to discriminate against white people or, in a lot of instances, Asians in order to make it happen. As a matter of fact, the United States Supreme Court is likely to overturn affirmative action policies concerning college admissions very, very soon. So Senator Dan Sullivan here in Arkansas decided to draft a piece of legislation that would end affirmative action in the hiring practices in the state government. It was a hotly debated bill. It made it out of a committee. It also then last week passed out of the Senate, the full Senate chamber. So it now goes to the House, where yesterday, or on Monday of this week, rather, a committee full of Republicans, from what I can tell, essentially torpedoed the bill and have effectively killed it for the rest of the session, barring a vote that is now likely to not take place. Senator Dan Sullivan's efforts to accomplish a Republican policy of ending affirmative action, of ending discrimination, has failed in the state of Arkansas. So we've had a lot of victories from a conservative standpoint. This is called, CAM Media, Conservative Arkansas Media. So from a conservative standpoint, we've had a lot of victories. This may not be one of them. And I'm going to play for you what happened. It involves the committee chairman, who I think actually didn't even know that this procedural vote was going to happen. The committee is the State Agencies and Governmental Affairs Committee. The chairman of that committee is State Representative Dwight Tosh. And he opened the committee where this bill was going to be heard by moving it to the deferred list, which is a good thing. Actually, that was requested by Senator Dan Sullivan, and that is where things started to go off the rails. Take a listen.
I've got just a couple of announcements to make before we get started, in case there's anyone here in attendance that's here to hear Senate Bill 71. I'm moving that bill to the deferred list, and it will not be heard. And if the sponsor of that bill decides to pull it off deferred, he'll notify myself or the staff, and then it'll be placed back on the agenda.
All right, so that should be no big deal, right? This giving the committee time to have a little bit more debate about this issue. But I think there were some people that don't want to debate, don't want this bill to become law at all, right? If you see there on the, I guess the bottom right of your screen, the state representative sitting to the right there, that is State Representative Jeff Wardlaw. And I don't think he likes that this bill was being moved on the deferred list, so he decides to table it. Listen.
But today we're moving that to deferred.
I said listen, but what I should have said was watch, because he doesn't actually make the motion. I know this is inside baseball. I'm going to walk you through it, but this is intriguing. He doesn't actually make the motion. State Representative Marcus Richmond makes the motion to table the bill, which effectively kills it. There's a small chance it doesn't, but for the most part it does. I want you to watch State Representative Jeff Wardlaw, because he acts like a third base coach, and he starts signaling apparently State Representative Marcus Richmond. Watch this.
Also,
What's the rules on deferment? And does it have to set for one meeting so the committee has to have notice as well, or just the chair?
the question is, what's the rules on the deferred? On the rule on deferred, once it goes to the deferred list, for it to come off the deferred list, the sponsor has to notify myself or my analyst here within 2 days. 2 days notice. And if they give me a 2 days notice, then we'll put it back on the agenda. Any further questions in regards to that?
All right, now watch
That it?
this. Watch.
Also,
here.
the only bill we're probably going to have time to hear today, and we called a special order for Senate Bill 250, and that's, we have
Give me the
14
signs
people
that third
signed
base
up
needs
to
to bunt.
speak
Here, third base
on this
coach.
bill, so I don't really think we're going to have time to hear any other bills in today's meeting. And like I said, we did call a special order just to hear Senate Bill 250.
So you can see him mouthing the words right there. We need to table it. That's what he's saying. We need to table it.
So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. And I believe the sponsor of Senate Bill 250 is here in the room, Senator Hammer. If you would, just have a seat at the end of the table. And if you're here and you want to speak for or against Senate
More
Bill,
signals. Oh, there we go. Now we've got the call. What's the call?
Representative Richmond, you have a question?
I'd like to make a motion.
Motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we table SB 71, the committee.
All right, so Chairman Tosh there consulting with the legislative liaison or advisor. And what's the decision?
Okay, that is a non-debatable, so your motion is to lay it on the table instead of putting it on the deferred list. Is that the proper motion you're making?
That is correct.
Okay, like I said, that's non-debatable. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. The motion has passed. That,
No no's.
Senate Bill 71 will be laid on the table.
All right, so what that effectively means is, as I told you, is that the bill is essentially now dead. I mean, it's essentially over. It was a hard-fought legislative process to get it to this point, and sometimes this happens, but it's got a lot of people scratching their heads when it comes to, this touchy issue. And you know what it really comes down to, quite frankly, is to some people, being called a racist is literally, in their minds, the worst possible thing that can be said about somebody, right? And I would suspect that we have some Republicans who don't even realize the phony presuppositions that they have accepted from the left in the media and the fake culture up to this point to get them to not be supportive of a common sense idea. As a matter of fact, Attorney General Tim Griffin supported this bill and even said that it moves the state closer to constitutional principles. The idea of equality of opportunity, but not the, Marxist equality of outcome that never ends that way. We all end up in camps. Anyway, so the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette reports on this bill failing, and I'm going to share this screen with you so you can see it. Bill to end affirmative action programs in state, local governments is tabled. The bill, by the way, was SB 71. We have a few quotes here. This is a article in the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette written by Neil Early. And we're going to reach out for a quote. You saw what happened, so I don't need to describe to you what the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette editorializes here. I will get this quote from Marcus Richmond. Richmond's motion means the bill is less likely to come up again. Quote, this is Marcus Richmond. I just think, people really need to have some additional time, Richmond said about his motion. I wanted the committee to be in control of the bill. While Richmond said he was open to ending affirmative action in Arkansas, he would prefer to have a working group study it out of legislative session. Okay, so it's about killing the bill. I mean, that's essentially why you would do that, is you don't want it to become law. You're not a fan of the legislation. and you want to do it in interim. Now, I want to remind you that this bill is something from what I can, and we need to reach out to Senator Dan Sullivan to get clarification on this, but I'm pretty sure there was going to be a process as the bill becomes law, a process that unfolded that eventually gave you the time to come up with the best policies, but that's neither here nor there. Matter of fact, Senator Dan Sullivan says this, the bill's sponsor: "It seems odd to have a majority Republican committee unwilling to debate or even discuss moving Arkansas closer to our constitutional principles." Now, some lawmakers were concerned that the bill would hurt museums that commemorate black history. Isn't that fascinating? Isn't it fascinating that they'll come up with anything? I mean, literally, let's just come up with anything that we think will stick, and we're just going to throw it at the wall to just create out of thin air possible problems for conservative pieces of legislation, and Republicans buy it. Republicans buy it. And don't think that there aren't, and here's the deal. Apparently there was an allergy to actually voting on this on the House floor. People maybe didn't want to go on record voting one way or the other. But you know what? There's always next time. You get another bite at the apple. But I will say this. I went out to, Senator Dan Sullivan's Facebook page because I wanted to get this quote from Attorney General Tim Griffin. Attorney General Tim Griffin said this: "I reviewed this legislation, and the idea that this ban on state-sponsored racial preferences will shut down our museums is ridiculous. Additionally, in fact, this bill will bring our state in line with constitutional principles that I expect the U.S. Supreme Court to reiterate soon." Look at that. Isn't that interesting that the Republican committee, I mean, you know, there's, I don't even know, how many, 76 trombones? There's 75, 76 Republicans in the Arkansas House of Representatives, so the committees are stacked, you know, with Republicans versus Democrats, and they didn't want to vote for affirmative action reform. That's what this is. This was affirmative action reform, or ending affirmative action, if you really want to be quite honest with it. But I guess there was apparently some aversion to it. I will say it is pretty funny, though, right? Just in terms of how the legislative process works with State Representative Wardlaw, you know, doing all these hand signals, and it's all on camera. Thank goodness it's all on camera for us to see in a transparent way, to consume what the people are in Arkansas are doing in our name as citizens and voters. Here's some good news, though. I said that we've got good news. This is really good. We covered this story a couple of weeks ago. The state okayed the monument plan. So this is a monument to all of the dead babies that have been killed in the state of Arkansas over the 40 years of genocide, where this policy, the abortion policy, has been the law of the land. And this is going to be a monument, not taxpayer funded. It's going to be privately funded, but it will go up on Capitol grounds, and it will be a memorial, a monument to the babies who were killed, who were cheated out of life. And hopefully this will be something that we can remember and make sure it never happens again, ever. So that bill passed. Also, another bill that we covered last week, we had State Representative Mindy McAlinden on, and her bill requiring an ID to view pornography passes the Arkansas House. You understand what a big deal this is? This is a huge shift in the Republican Party away from libertarianism in a big way. You know, we talked to State Representative McAlinden last week here on Conservative Arkansas Media, and we talked about, just the idea of protecting kids, specifically from having their realities just warped by the sexualization. Sex is everywhere, and especially the explicit access, to explicit content on the internet, sexual content on the internet. And honestly, I can't really imagine this bill even getting the time of day 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Now, if you put yourself in that mindset, I want you to think about that. It's 2023, so 10 years ago, we're 2013, and that you had the Tea Party in 2010. You had Republicans taking over in every aspect here in the state of Arkansas. I mean, it was just in large part thanks to the Marxist policies and Marxist ideals of Barack Obama. And yet, you would have thought that something like this, might have worked, but no. But it was more of a libertarian bent out there. And what people have realized, and again, I'm going to throw this headline up there. I want you to look at this. What people have realized is that a live and let live mentality, which is advanced oftentimes in a libertarian mindset, and I used to be right on board with this, means that you have to be okay with government policies, government-sanctioned policies that are bad for children and are bad for society. And that's what it means. You know what I mean? Like this live and let live philosophy, this live and let live mentality, it's all great on paper, and it is great if you have a moral and decent people, but it gets taken to the extreme and people abuse their liberty, and it means that we have to accept parents chemically castrating their kids. Well, if we're going to adhere to this philosophy, then yeah, that would be consistent. The only problem is the other side isn't consistent at all. They don't want to tolerate anything that we do from a Christian standpoint. They're not playing by the same rules, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, they take it as far as they possibly can, and that's why this bill banning pornography, or requiring an ID, we're not to banning yet, but requiring an ID to view it is that's why it passed, because people are realizing, as the left gets more and more and more depraved, we've got to do something, and we can use the government to do it. Because this is what the left has done. The left has used the government to create all of this moral, largesse. They have. They've used the government in many ways, whether it's an active judiciary or, laws like in New York that's, straight up want to legalize, abortion in the fourth trimester. This is where we're at today, and it's good. This is encouraging. We have Christian red states all across the country that are enacting bills like this because people realize what time it is, and it is a very, very positive thing, and it makes me happy to live in Arkansas with this kind of nobody's perfect, as we just saw. But it makes me happy to live in Arkansas where you have this kind of representation and people are realizing what time it is and how we have to stand up now, because this is really kind of our last stand. This is it. And we have to rely on, the individual states being able to govern themselves. What little bit of federalism exists in the tank, I mean, it's almost gone here in this constitutional republic, if you can even call us that anymore. The sovereignty of the state of Arkansas with a capital S, okay, meaning the definition of the word state has got to start meaning something again. And I think it is, and because you're having a lot of the sexual deviants in the LGBTQ enclave, the goose-stepping gay lobby, as I call them, are taking L's all across Christian red states. It's happening. It's happening here in Arkansas, and we definitely need to recognize it and be thankful for it and continue to pray for our legislators. Even if we disagree with them, we need to continue to pray for them.